In Silicon Valley, the list price of a home for sale will often not be the same thing as the sale price of that property when it does sell and close. How do you know what it's going to sell for? As a home buyer, it can be hard to know. The first thing you ought to do is to have a buyer's agent in your corner working with you who can help you to not just pull the comps, but to assess them, to check in with pending sales with the listing agent and do some recon for you to try to piece together not just what is sold in the past, but what is happening right now with those currently pending sales and the trajectory of the market. Because it's important to know if home prices are going up, that yesterday's sold price is only a hint of where it's going to be, but it won't be back there at the sale price. So first, you want to have a good buyer's agent. It's really, really crucial. And know that if your buyer's agent is skilled, she or he will be able to sort through the noise of all the different comps and help you to know which are the appropriate ones. Not that you won't also search on some of the big portals yourself, but understand that realtors know what appraisers are looking at and that values get skewed if you go too high, too low in the square footage, too far out, wrong school district, wrong side of a major street. So that's the first thing. Get a good buyer's agent to help you. Secondly, what we do with our clients and what I know other realtors do with theirs is we select comps based on a pretty tight set of criteria. Not that we won't throw the net wider to see what else is happening, but we're looking for recent sales. The more recent, the better. But sometimes the closest home actually sold 6 months ago. So appraisers can go back a full year if they need to, but more recent is better as much as possible. So it also needs to be within 10 or 15% of the square footage of the house or condo or the townhouse, whatever it might be. This is a place where a lot of buyers get confused and they see that homes are selling for less per square foot that are not similar in size, and then they import that mental price per square footage analysis onto a smaller home, and it devalues the property. And what's not known by most non-realtors is that smaller homes sell for more per square foot than larger homes. And that's a whole other discussion. But basically, kitchens and bathrooms are the most expensive rooms in the house. And normally you still only have one kitchen and only a few bathrooms. So even whether the house is 1,200 square feet or 2,500 square feet. So that's the major reason, family rooms and garages don't cost as much as kitchens and bathrooms. Anyway, if you start looking at homes that are too large or too small, you're going to get a skewed pricing analysis. So it has to be very, very narrow band. It's annoying, but you got to do that. Also, the lot size should be similar. So if you're on a 1/4 acre lot, you don't want to look at 1/2 acre lots, and you don't want to look at new construction on a 3,000 square foot parcel either. So keep the lot size fairly similar. And the distance, ideally within 1 mile, ideally same school district, ideally same elementary school, especially if it's a strong one. And occasionally there's a major road. Near me is Blossom Hill Road. One side of it sells for more than the other. Or my home in Los Gatos is near the border with both Almaden and Cambrian, both of which sell for a little less. It's important to stay in the same city, the same zip code, the same school district, the same everything. Sometimes there's a lack of comps and those things have to be adjusted for, but it's tricky. So those would be your ideal parameters. The big one to avoid that a lot of people fall into is the wrong home size. So when you pull those comps and you've got that kind of tight band and you have a pretty good sense of pricing, that gives you, in an overheated market, the floor of pricing, not the ceiling, especially when the overheated market is seeing an appreciation in home prices. So remember, the comps are what happened yesterday. So if you have a lot of comps, and it's easy to chart that in 1 month they're here and another month they're here, another month they're here, and you could kind of say, well, then we should be here now. When there aren't very many sales, that's harder to do. And again, if you have a buyer's agent, she or he can call some of the listing agents and say, how is the pending sale looking on your property? Can you tell me how many listings or how many offers you got on your home when you had your offer due date? What can you tell me about the sale price? That will also help you. But remember, those pending sales are still going to be behind. And if the market's rising, it's going to be higher than the pendings, not the same, and certainly not lower than the pendings. So that'll be your floor pricing. The next element to try to sort out is the competition. If you go to an open house and it's dead, you might not be as concerned, although you want to check the football schedule. Sometimes if the local teams are playing, then you're going to have a little bit quiet of an open house, and maybe the other day it's going to be just packed wall to wall with people. And the buyer's agent will call the listing agent and check in what's the competition looking like. Do you have a sense of how many offers there are, how many disclosure packages they're out? In days gone by, we would say that you'd get 1% over list for every offer past one. So 2 offers, 2% over, 3 offers, 3% over. That's a rule of thumb. It doesn't work if the home is priced with a value at a list price at the value that's projected. Sometimes they do that. And it doesn't always work if it's priced way, way, way low. And if it's overpriced, then of course that's not going to work either. So it just depends. But as a general rule, each offer that comes is probably going to generate a higher sale price. And then there are things you can't possibly know, and that is why one buyer might spike the price. So a lot of times when we see 10 and 15 offers on a home, there's, the people who bid at or under list price because they're just in dreamland and they're hoping somehow it will sell for less. Then there's a band of pricing of solid buyers who would really like to buy the house, but they're maybe not pushing themselves. And then there's usually a band of buyers who are pushing themselves, and maybe they've got super clean offer, super short time frames. Maybe they're endowed with an extra large down payment or cash offer. And that's great. Those are really, really strong offers. But every once in a while, there's somebody way up here in the stratosphere, like off the screen. And what can happen is you don't know this, but maybe that person's got a grandmother who lives on the same street. Or maybe their parent lives a block away and the parent's going to do childcare. Or maybe it's the same floor plan that one of these buyers lived in growing up, and there are all these emotional attachments to that floor plan, or who knows what. So there can be personal motivating factors why a buyer might spike it. And once in a while, we end up with a few of those. We end up with 2 or 3 buyers who spike the price. And it won't appraise that high. It hasn't got a prayer of appraising that high, but those are people that you're competing against. And maybe you don't want to compete that high. But if you spend months writing offers and none of your offers are ever getting to the top, then you might want to reevaluate your strategy and maybe see, are you guessing the wrong price, or do you know it's going to sell higher, but you're just trying? Because just trying is sort of a waste of time, and all you're really doing is helping another buyer to make the sale price higher for the seller. So think about only writing offers when you're serious and committed to it. In calmer markets, it's a different problem with maybe the seller has an elevated sense of value than the buyer does. And we can look at that next with a little chart that I developed a few years ago. In a somewhat normal or balanced market, which we don't often have here in Silicon Valley, the seller might have a more inflated view of a home's worth, and a buyer might have a more deflated view of a home's worth. And in those cases, the challenge is getting them into a common range or an overlap, as is displayed in this image that I created a few years ago. In this case, if the buyer goes too low, the seller won't accept it. If the seller's pricing is too high, or they're very stubborn and don't come down after a period of time, then the buyer is going to walk away. So they vote with their feet. Both of them can do this. So the only time a sale is going to happen in this balanced or normal market is if their valuation of the home overlaps somewhat. And it isn't always just price. Terms actually are a considerable force in this whole negotiation. But of course, price is the number one factor. And finally, terms. Price is the most important thing to most buyers and to most sellers, but it's not the only thing. There are lots of terms that can either enhance or get in the way of your offer being accepted as a home buyer. One is cash down payment. The higher the down payment, the more likely it is to close, at least in the seller's mind, and it will get weighted in the favor of the person with the most cash if everything else is neck and neck. If you have a very small down payment, it's probably easiest to get an offer accepted if there are not competing bids. Not to say it couldn't happen, but the odds are not in your favor. The all cash deal, of course, is going to be king as long as the price is appropriate. And sometimes the all cash sale will sell for a little bit less than the highest financed bid because it is more of a sure thing. There's no underwriter to worry about. There's no appraiser to worry about. There's no bank bureaucracy to worry about. And it just is a faster, cleaner, less stressful process for everybody. It's just more of a sure thing. Other elements to the offer can be the speed of close. If it's a vacant staged home, and many of them are today, then a faster close is going to be preferable to most sellers. They don't want to wait and have to keep paying for the staging or pay the property taxes or the mortgage or anything else. When they've moved out, they want it sold, they want cash in the bank, and they want to be done. So the speed of the close of escrow can be a big help. Who pays what? Sometimes buyers will step up and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to pay for X, Y, and Z that are traditionally your cost. And they might have different reasons for doing that. But whatever it is, if you start taking things off of the seller's net sheet, then they're going to be very happy to take away more proceeds from the sale. And sometimes there are intangibles, things like the buyer who says, I'm going to tear down this house and build new, will not go over very well when there's a homeowner who loves their property. And maybe the seller's a trustee. Maybe it was grandma's house and they live near, the trustee lives nearby and would like to still drive by grandma's house. So as a buyer, if it's later your house, you have the right to do what you want with it. But I wouldn't suggest announcing that you're going to dramatically tear down the house or remodel it so that it doesn't look at all like it does today. You know, expressing that you appreciate a home is always going to be valued by sellers. That's just a simple rule of thumb. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything because it will probably hurt your odds of success. So price and terms. Thanks very much for listening. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, or better yet, hit the like button and leave a comment below. Thanks. Bye.